want to show you guys real quick how much more you can see out of the new mirrors. So here's the old one over here on the passenger side. You can see just a tiny bit of the truck for reference, and then, you know, it's pretty much just boom, one big viewing spot. And it's not really a broad angle if you think about it. That's not a whole lot. You come over here and you can see way more. You can see all the way from rear tire up to the sky. Way more height, way more width, just way better overall viewing angle. These are so much better, not only in actual functional viewing, but also looks wise, aesthetics wise. So when it comes to light operation of this particular unit, I got the smoked lens here, and then there's a white DRL. The two strips light up white just with the running lights or the headlights on. And then when you turn the blinker on, they switch from white to a sequential orange for the blinker. Also, when you turn the blinker on, the LED dotted red arrow illuminates right here on the front side. These ones have heated upper glass. The bottom is not heated. And these ones also have the optional reverse lights. Now, you can wire these up for reverse or into your cargo light. I'm gonna wire mine into the cargo because I don't want them coming on every time I throw the truck into reverse. If I want them in reverse, I can just turn on my cargo lamp when I throw the truck in reverse. Now, I believe they offer another design where it's the dotted LEDs instead of the strips. And I believe they also offer a painted black, this textured black, and then a painted white. So again, check out their website down below, and they have a couple different options for each vehicle. They also have mirrors for Dodges, Rams, Tundras, and F-250 to F-550s, as well as select your Toyota Tacomas. So in today's video, we're gonna do a really quick unbox just to show you what all comes with the mirrors. I've already gone over the functions of this particular mirror. I'm gonna show you how to take your door panel apart and remove your old mirrors, how to mount these ones, and then how to route and connect the wiring to make everything work on these new Sanooer Auto Parts mirrors. The main big brown box that these mirrors come in will have two of these white styrofoam enclosures. Each one will have a mirror. So I've got one of the enclosures pulled out. You'll need to cut the tape, pull the styrofoam lid off. One of the mirrors will have your installation instructions. Each one has multiple, as you can see, it has all the different years, tells you which page to go to for your application. It's also going to come with some plastic panel trim removal tools so you don't damage your trim doing this job. Each mirror is going to come with 3 new mounting nuts for the mirror. And then, of course, the mirror itself comes all wrapped up like this. And there is a protective film that you're going to want to pull off the front, or I should say the back LEDs. Now, as far as tooling goes, besides the installation instructions and the supplied plastic panel trim removal tools, you won't need a whole lot. You'll need a 7mm socket. I've got an extension on mine to make things easier. You'll need some sort of ratchet for that socket. And then you'll also need a 10mm socket, and I've got a separate ratchet for that socket, but that's not required. And that pretty much should do it. If you're gonna do the wiring portion, then you'll need some wire crimping tools, but we'll get into that later. Now, if yours is not, this light is probably going to be on since the door is open, so be careful not to burn yourself and don't let it touch the carpeting down here or anything. Okay, now you don't want to let the door panel hang from these wires or anything like that, so if you need a hand, grab a buddy. But what we're gonna do here is just disconnect all the electrical connectors so we can get the whole door panel off and get it out of our way for now. The driver's side has like an extra connector or two, but it's basically the same thing. To save time from this video getting extremely long, I'm not gonna show both sides, but they're gonna be very, very similar, if not the same. So this one down here, I'm just gonna pinch down on this center tab while I wiggle and pull outward, like so. This one down here, we need to lift this gray locking lever. So we can use this guy. We need to push in on this black tab here. Then we can pry up on the gray lever and continue lifting the gray lever all the way up. Then we can wiggle and pull that connector out. This one up here is just pinch the lever, wiggle and pull. Same with the blue one and the green one. Now, the speaker has a magnet on it, so don't set it near anything metal. I'm gonna set it face down like this, just in the floor of the cab. To make things easier for now, I'm gonna take this bundle, the gray, the white, and blue wire. Those are the wires for the running light and the dome or reverse. I'm gonna go ahead and just pinch these two tabs, wiggle and pull. Now you can either use the new nuts that come with it or the factory ones. I'm actually going to use the factory ones just because they have a bigger washer around them, so it displaces the tension a little bit better on the mirror. But up to you. You could even install the factory ones and then add the other new ones for some sort of like a jam nut if you want. I'm going to start all three before letting go of the mirror. Now this is probably the most difficult part about the job, is we need to get these three wires through this. Now if you'll see so far, I've done exactly as I said. follow the harness down, zip tie along the way, and I went about to right here where this little mounting tab is. It ended there, and then I jumped up to, this is the speaker connector. So the speaker is gonna plug in something like this. So my wiring is gonna make a jump from there up to there, and then it's gonna cut over and come out right here. So it won't be in the way, it won't hit the glass. You can see the window is down right here. So we got a good inch of clearance here. It's mounted to the factory wiring that goes right there. We won't have any problems. The easiest way that I have found to get through here is to get something like a coat hanger or some really thick wiring and just carefully feed it through the top. So what I like to do is try and get this least amount of bend as possible. So if you can try and like compact it like this, as you can see now, it's like pretty much a straight shot. And then I'll take the coat hanger and fish it through. Now you got to kind of wiggle it back and forth. You don't just want to stab it through, because you're going to end up coming out the side of the rubber boot, stabbing through it, or you're going to poke a wire and damage it. You don't want to do any of that. You got to take your time, kind of feel around. I don't know what else to say other than just to take your time, be patient, and try and get it straight and compressed like this. So this is not a coat hanger, it's just some medium gauge wiring, but I got it bent, so I got a rounded end, so I don't have a sharp corner. I'm gonna go ahead and stick that end through. Hopefully it will not snag on anything, and I've got it as straight as I can get it. Like I said, this is gonna hook up to the speaker right about here. I'm gonna add one more zip tie holding the wires we just ran to the main harness here right before it passes through the door. That way it kind of anchors it and there's not just a bunch of loose wiring within that rubber boot sliding back and forth. So we'll tuck this through there, and then we'll come over here. This rectangle one should go all the way in the front. Make sure you hear the click. The black connector goes all the way towards the back or the outside of the door, and the blue one should go towards the front here. And the last one is this one. Once we get it plugged in, don't forget to pull this plastic lever back, which keeps it engaged. Oh, there it is. So we're gonna push the connector in while we slide this little gray lock back. And it's gonna suck it in even more and lock it in. So there's all of them plugged in. Make sure none of them are all bunched up or anything here. We're just gonna gently kind of push against the door with the panel. We also need to pay attention, in addition to getting all these tabs lined up here, we also need to get this mounting screw hole lined up with this mounting hole. And this piece slides back and forth just a little bit to get it lined up if you need to, but we're gonna focus on getting all of these hooked up right now. So I like to start on the bottom. Now, if you look carefully, the hole isn't perfectly lined up with the mounting hole. So if I push down a little bit on the door panel, now you can see it's lined up better. Now for the interior door lock, you want it so that the orange is towards the back or the rear of the door. Then if you look here, you've got one tab on the front that does not compress. You got two back here that do compress. So what we want to do is you need to slide this piece to get it to where this slot that you can see moving lines up with this door linkage, because that slides back and forth and this slides back and forth. So I'm going to put this all the way towards the rear. I'm going to slide this towards the rear with the orange facing the rear of the door, tip it back like this, and I'm going to look from the top, focus on getting this into here. And then what I'm going to do is get the front tab in behind the door panel like so, and then snap it into place on the back side. So now we need to focus on, like I said, I'm gonna tie mine into the dome light. Well, the dome light switch is over here on the driver's side, so we don't have to go too far with the wiring for the driver's mirror, but the passenger one, we gotta get it all the way from down there across the dash over to the dome light. So I think the way I'm gonna go about this, and again, you guys can do it differently, free to choose, but my recommended method is I'm going to run the wires, all three of them. So we got 3 wires that need to get tapped in for this mirror. You got 2 of them, one's power, one's ground for the cargo or reverse lamps, and then you have a single wire that gets tapped in for the white forward facing LED strips. So what I'm going to do is run all 3 wires from that mirror across the dash, and I'm going to tap it in to these 3 wires. So they're all going to be on one circuit pretty much. Now, you may need to put the shifter down. I have to put my foot on the brake, put this all the way down into first gear, and that allows me to finagle this thing out of here. Also, tilting the wheel down may help. You should have a tilt wheel lever right here, unless you have a base model. It's not uncommon to bump the 4-way switch when you're taking this trim panel off. So if you're wondering why your 4-ways are on, that's why. Just go ahead, hit it, and you'll shut them off. Now to do this is actually pretty simple. We're just gonna pull the whole assembly out. So what I'm gonna do is get one finger behind this tab, one finger behind this one, and just carefully pull straight back towards me. So there's a clip up here. You gotta get that one loose. There's one down here, get that loose, and there's one up here. Pull forward, pull forward. Again, be careful, you don't wanna snap any plastic. Apply minimal force. If it feels like it's just bending a lot and not coming, grab somewhere that's more sturdy, like down here on this corner. I would try to steer clear of grabbing the vent, even though there is a clip right here, just because it's not super sturdy. I try to grab it this corner or this one or that one. So we've got this whole assembly basically out now. Now the fog light and the dome light are the same switch if you have both options. We got a plastic tab right here we need to pry up in order to get that popped out. I'll again use one of these orange trim tools that was supplied with the kit. Pry up just enough. You don't want to force it and break anything, but pry up just enough to clear that tab. So while you're prying on it, you'll grab the outer shell here and then take your other fingers and push on the back side of the switch itself to kind of force it forward. And there's another one of these retainer clips just like it on top of the switch below the 4x4 switch. It's kind of hard to see, but you can see it right in there. It's a little difficult. I'm not going to be able to get that part on camera, but I'm going to just stick that tool in there, pry up while I push the switch out, just like I did on the bottom one. right, there we go. And now here is our connector. We don't necessarily need to unplug it. I just wanted to show you if you wanted to unhook it, you gotta pry up on this black tab while you wiggle and pull the connector off. We just need to tap into a few wires here. So we'll probably just pull back a little bit on this electrical tape, and then we figure out which wires are for the dome lamp. All right, I've got the white, gray, and blue wiring from the passenger side, ran up, it's wired through a little cutout in this black plastic panel. I've got it up here, zip tied to all the other wires just to keep everything nice, tight, and together. Then we're coming across over here, got it zip tied to that first little cutout in the metal bracket, and then I've got it pulled up tight up behind this gray plastic piece, and then you can just get a glimpse of the wiring right there. I actually didn't even need the wire. I was able to just kind of floss it between here and got it coming up right here, cutting across. All right, and then I did use the wire or coat hanger. I twisted the wires together on the end again, and I just kind of tucked it down here. There's a tiny, tiny gap that you can just barely get it fished through beneath the climate control here. And then it comes out on the back side of it. I could see it through this little window here, the wires, and it came through the back side. And then I took and bent this wire, made like a hook, and I just kind of fed it through here, grabbed the wires like so, and pulled them out just like that. Then I secured them. I left them kind of loose going around the instrument cluster because the trim piece that goes here actually has a plastic piece that's going to go right here, and we want to have enough slack to where the wires can go on the outside of the plastic. So I left it a little loose there. I zip tied it to this factory hole here in this metal bracket, and I'm running out of wiring coming from the passenger side, so it's not quite going to make it to the switch unless I run the wires under the instrument cluster, which I mentioned earlier I don't want to do. So what I'm going to do now is, because we're all the way over to the driver's side, I'm going to run these wires from the driver's side mirror up to these wires, and I'm just going to tie them together like I mentioned earlier. Then I will tap into the switch here using the excess wiring from the driver's side wires. Now on the driver's side, of course, we've already fished the wires through the rubber boot, and I have them coming out right through this metal hole in the A-pillar. Then as you can see, I've just routed it along this factory harness, zip tying it along the way. Then I grabbed the bottom of the fuse box cover, the interior fuse box cover, and continued routing it along factory wiring, zip tying it along the way. You can see I can still get to all the fuses. The wiring's not covering that. And then I've got it just coming up, zip tied to the factory headlight harness there, and then up and over this mount here. And now I'm going to connect the two harnesses together, white to white, gray to gray, and blue to blue. So I've cut my wires to be as long as I need them to be. Now I'm going to strip some insulation off of all of them. You can use a wire stripper like this or an automated one like so. Now, I'm not a fan of Scotch locks or T-taps or whatever you want to call them, so I've gone ahead, twisted the two gray wires together after I stripped the insulation off of them, and I'm going to go ahead and use these 18 to 22 gauge wire crimp connectors, which have shrink tubing over it. So once you crimp it, you can use like a lighter or a little torch very carefully, and it'll shrink this down, and not only will it grab the wire more, but it'll also help to keep any sort of moisture away, which is going to aid in preventing corrosion. If you're going to use an insulated crimp connector like I am, you want to make sure when you're using your wire crimper that you're not using the part here with the more aggressive sharp tooth. You want to use the part further back where it's just gently rounded. So just like that, as you can see, it's in the rounded insulated portion of my crimper. I have the crimper positioned between the midpoint of the wire connector and the end of it. You want it to be on the metal portion. You can see in the center section here is actually metal. So you want to have the wire pushed in to the halfway point, and then you want to crimp it between the halfway point and right here where my fingernail is. All right, there we go. Blue to blue, white to white, gray to gray. Now notice I have all of them going in the same end. That's because we're gonna take the excess wire here that we cut off from the driver's side mirror, and we're gonna take and put the white one in the other end of the white, the gray, the other end of the gray, and the blue in the other end of the blue. So what that is gonna do is basically we've tied both of our mirrors together here. And now that those are tied together, we need to run the wires to the actual power sources. So now instead of running 2 wires to the power source, we can just run a single wire of each color to our power source and our ground. Now, since we're using the same gauge wire, which is pretty small, and it's only gonna be 1 wire going into each end of these, I'm gonna strip a little bit extra insulation off. That way, when I twist the wire together at the end, I can fold it over and essentially double the thickness of the wiring, basically imitating 2 wires going in. That way, I know I get a good crimp and I don't have to worry about this skinny wire pulling out. So there I've stripped and twisted and folded the blue wire. As you can see, it's doubled up pretty much since it is folded. And now I'm gonna stick that in the other end of the blue and crimp that down. Repeat the same steps for white and gray. All right, there we go. All done with the wiring there to the connectors. Now this part's optional. Since you're inside the vehicle, there really shouldn't be a whole lot of water or moisture in here anyways. But as long as we're here, I'm gonna go ahead and shrink these down. You're supposed to use a heat gun or a hair dryer. I don't have either of those handy, so I'm gonna have to use an open flame. You gotta be really careful when you use an open flame, even if it's just a lighter. I'm using a micro torch. You wanna just kinda hover back and forth on low heat. Make sure you don't torch any of your plastics, your instrument cluster or anything like that. So be mindful of where the flame is. But now watch this shrink down. Let's kinda, see that? All right, there we go. All 3 connectors are crimped and heat shrunk. I forgot to mention I did give these other wires a tug test before shrinking them. Be careful after shrinking them if you do that, because they do stay hot for a little bit and you can burn yourself. You can see this one's more fresh. I just did it. It's a little more translucent. You can see through it. And this one has cooled down a little bit and it's less see-through, but it's still a little bit warm. So just be careful there. All right, so I haven't fully reinstalled this or anything yet. I just kind of set it in place to get it out of my way. Now we're looking at the dome light switch. That would be this one. Do not mistake it for this one. This is fog light. I looked up the wiring diagram for my vehicle. When the ignition key is off, if you turn the ignition off and you hit the cargo lamp, it will turn the cargo lamp on, but it won't turn these on. But that's not really a big deal. I'm only gonna be using them when the ignition is either on or the truck is running anyways, but I just wanted to point that out. So that's how you're gonna have to wire it, guys. Gray wire to blue with the white stripe, white wire to purple with the white stripe. I did the same crimp tug test and heat shrinking that I did with the other wires up there. Now we're good and we can actually go ahead and reinstall this. Now it's supposed to go this way with the fogs on the bottom. So this light is shining down. Remember, it's held in place by 1 tab on top and 1 on bottom. So we're gonna get this little notch right here on the side lined up and just push, click. Make sure you hear it fully click in. Give it 1 more check, and that is nice. Now we're getting close. All that's left is to pull this back off and tap the last blue wire into the headlight switch for the marker. So for our last blue wire here, for the white forward-facing marker lights on the mirrors, we're gonna tap into this wire right here. It is brown with a white stripe. If you look at the back of the headlight connector, it should be a green connector, but even if it's a different style or color, here is the retainer tab, aka the top of the connector where you'd pinch to remove it. The brown wire is on the bottom row, all the way to the left. So there it is, the last blue wire tied in with the brown and white, coming into one end of the connector, crimped it, tug test, and then other end of the connector right into that brown wire with white stripe. You'll see I'm pretty close to the connector there. You want to cut your wiring far enough back to give yourself room for that. So cut it a few inches back. So now we can secure any wiring. I'll probably zip tie all this together like that and then just plop the whole piece back in. There we go, a few zip ties added here. Now we just need to get this back into place. So there's a lot of things we have to get lined up. There's a slot here, 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 one down there, and then there's a hole here that we have an alignment dowel on. So the easiest way I found is to get this rotated correctly. And what I do is get the bottom started first, because I didn't pull this knee bolster panel down. If you want to, you can, but you don't have to. You'll tuck the bottom of it behind the knee bolster like that, And then you'll kind of get the top into position. And what you need to do is focus on getting this plastic pin right there into that hole. Just like that. Come over here. See how everything over here is lining up. Tuck your wires back. Got another alignment dowel down here. Go ahead and push that in. Once you have both those alignment dowels lined up, you should be pretty good to start pushing. There's one back here. If you can't fit your finger in there, I recommend pushing on it with like a screwdriver. I'll push the other ones in first. So we've got bottom right, top right, bottom left. Just got to get that top left in now. I'll try a 1/4 inch ratchet extension here, but I'll just push on it. There we go. That's it. You could push here, but like I said, I try not to push on the vent. It's kind of brittle. That should be fully seated, guys. Now, we're gonna give it one more light test just to make sure everything works. And all we gotta do is reinstall that dash trim and we're done. Now you can throw the vehicle back up into park, readjust the tilt wheel to your normal driving position. And another thing I'd like to mention is come over here and make sure everything's turned off before you park your vehicle. Since we're messing with a lot of the dash here, you can bump the 4-way switch, you can bump a lot of your radio and climate controls, the cargo lamp, the fog lights, the 4-wheel drive controls, the headlamp, the dimmer, any of that stuff. So if your headlights are really dim and you're wondering why, make sure your dimmer is turned up. Just kind of take mental note that all of this was messed with. So if something's not working properly, check all that, make sure everything is plugged in and adjusted to your normal setting. One last thing I did forget to mention is that these towing mirrors also telescope. They're manual telescoping, so you just pull out on them just like so, and you have more visibility around trailers or campers, whatever you're towing. As you can see, the passenger side does the same thing, of course. And we're gonna kind of end the video now on a little bit of a montage. I'm gonna show the lights around dusk, and then again in the actual dark, then we'll wrap up the video.
Turn around, I feel the breeze.